Now, I don't know if you're aware of this, but did you know that since the turn of the century, the United Nations, now it wasn't the United Nations back then, but since the formation of the United Nations or the League of Nations, they have been talking about dividing the entire world into 10 regions. Okay? They're not making any secret about it. That same philosophy has translated even into the United Nations, and they have adopted the same thing. And what you're looking at on the screen right now are the 10 seats of power that the United Nations would like to eventually divide the world into. Now, we're going to walk through this, and I'm going to show you just how serious the United Nations are. This is a very real thing. Okay? And you see that you have region 1 is North America, you have South America, you have Africa, North Africa, Europe, Eastern Europe, China, you have Indonesia, this whole Asia, and then you have Australia, and Australia is connected with South Africa, and if you know the history, that makes sense to you. And then, of course, there's Japan. There are 10 seats of power on the earth, and this is the map that the UN has laid out in how they would like to divide the power around the globe. Now, this is not something that is new. Like, this is not something that the UN has been discussing over the last 20 years or, since the term the New World Order became very popular. This, in fact, is something that they have been talking about for a long, long time. Now, I find it very interesting that it just happens to be 10 seats of power, just like the Bible describes, with those 10 horns. And remember, the Antichrist is able to step in, and with the power and the authority that he's been given, all of a sudden, he is able to rule all of these regions. See, I'm not necessarily sure that I believe that there is a plot to globalize the world. I think there is a plot to regionalize the world. I think that's what's described in Daniel chapter number 2 and Daniel 7 and Revelation 12 and 13 and 17. To me, when I'm reading it, I'm reading about these 10 horns, and I'm reading about regionalization, seats of power around the globe. It's interesting that these 10 horns, the Bible makes it very clear that these are seats of power, that these are empires on the earth. And what are we talking about now? The UN is talking about dividing the entire globe into 10 separate regions. What you're looking at here on the screen is a screenshot of their plan to regionalize the globe, and this comes off of the United Nations website. So they're not making this some kind of secret or trying to hide this. They are calling this the regional groupings. And if you read this, I'm sure that it's too small for any of you to read right now, you'll see that it says this is the way in which we are planning to develop the globe, to regionalize the world into 10 separate regions. And of course, it says that there are sub-regions and talks about all these, and that's all just governance. But the idea here is that they want to separate the globe into 10 separate regions. Now think about this. If they are successful, and I think that they will be, if they are successful in divvying up the globe into 10 separate regions, that doesn't mean that all the nations disappear. It just means that there are rulers over each of these regions. And the one ruler that's going to be over all of those rulers, of course, is the Antichrist. Because, again, he's been given the power and authority by the dragon. Now, this is not something that's brand new. Look at this map. This map goes back to 1942. This was published by the United Nations in 1942. And it shows, now it's a more crude than the other one that I showed you, but it basically shows the same exact premise. Now, it's interesting that it says post-war New World Map. Now, I'm going to show you something on this map that will be very scary because there's some language on here that we will not hear for 60 years. But all of a sudden, we start talking about it. But you see that the regions are divided up generally the same. There's a couple differences, like South Africa in 1942, that was all different. But you see North America, South America, Africa, you see Asia, you see Japan, you see Australia, you see Europe, but ultimately, it's 10 regions. Even back in 1942, they were talking about this. Now, I'm going to blow the map up and show you that little box at the bottom that says post-war New World Map, and I'm going to show you what it says just under that because you're not able to see it. So let me zoom in, and I want you to see that. You see just under where it says post-war New World Map, it says New World Moral Order. Does that sound familiar? The New World Order? That wouldn't be talked about for another 60 years or 50 years after this map is published. And yet they are talking about this map, the United Nations, that they published in 1942, and they are calling this the New World Moral Order for permanent peace, freedom, justice, and security, and world reconstruction. Do you see that? They're not making it a secret. Since 1942, they've been publishing maps saying this is exactly what we want to do. We want to take the entire earth and divide it up into 10 regions. Why 10? Oh, I don't know. I'm sure it was just a random number that they just pulled out of the sky. No, because everything is going according to God's plan. This is God putting everything together. Again, Satan thinks he's trying to get one over on God. But every time he's getting one over on God, God is really up there saying, you're not doing anything that shocks me. And in fact, what you're doing is just helping me put together the plan that will ultimately bring me glory in the end. That's God speaking that. I mean, think about that for a moment. So 10 isn't just a random number. 10 is exactly what the Bible says, that there will be 10 seats of power during this global regionalization in the tribulation period. And since 1942, the United Nations have been talking about the New World Moral Order, which includes 10 regions of the world. For what purpose? For permanent peace, freedom, justice, security, and world reconstruction. Now, if you look at it, it's interesting that the United Nations also has a university. I'm not sure if you're aware of that, but it is the university, the United Nations University. And in that university, they have courses, they have studies, they do research, just like any other university. And they have textbooks. And some of the textbooks and the courses that you can take are very interesting. Here's an example of 3 of them, and I have 3 more that I'll show you. And there are many more, but time prohibits us. The first one is a textbook for the changing global order. Challenges and prospects of how we can change this whole global order. And in that textbook, it lays out the plan for regionalization. Now, again, this is what I'm saying is I've never been a big believer that in globalization. I don't think that's where we're headed. And I think sometimes if you think globalization, then you have a misunderstanding of what the Bible lays out, and I think you'll miss a few things. What the Bible clearly describes is regionalization, and what the UN is teaching is regionalization. And the plan that they're laying out is one of regionalization. In fact, look at the other one. It says building regions. That is another textbook for another course that is offered at the University of the United Nations. And it says the regionalization of the world order. I'm not making these up. I'm going to the United Nations University website, and I'm pulling these shots, these cover shots of the textbooks that they're offering. And they're telling you, we have a course that we are offering that is called Building Regions. What are we studying there? Well, the subtitle of the book is The Regionalization of the World Order. How much more clear can they possibly be? You have the other one, another one, that is Regionalizing Omen. What's an omen? An omen is showing something that is to come. That's what an omen means. And so what this course is about, and if you read through the book, you'll realize that they are showing you the things that are to come in the idea of regionalization. So how are we going to bring about this big plan to regionalize the globe and divide the globe into 10 seats of power? How are we going to do that? Well, there's some omens that we can look for that'll show us the way. Here's some more. European Union and new regionalism. Not globalism. They're talking about regionalism. The idea of globalism is that the whole world is governed by one institution. That's not what the Bible lays out. The Bible lays out that the globe is ruled by 10 seats of power that all have one mind and have given their authority and their power to the Antichrist. The other one says the EU and world regionalism. Again, these are all textbooks that you can go on the University of the United Nations website, and you can pull up these screenshots of the covers of their books, and you can even read excerpts of these books. And these are courses that are being offered at the United Nations University. You can take these courses. The EU and world regionalism. The third one on this page, European Union and new regionalism. Competing regionalism and global governance in a post-hegemonic Euro. Wow. They're talking about economy. That's what post-hegemonic Euro means. So they're talking about the European Union and the European economy and the hedging of that economy. All of it is right here. They're telling you, and they walk you through the plan and say, yes, our plan is to divide up the world into 10 regions. Now, here's something else that's interesting. This is a book. Oh, my thing there is in a horrible spot. Let me get rid of that for a second. I can't move it. Anyway. This is a book called Institutionalizing Northeast Asia, Regional Steps Toward Global Governance. The United Nations is out to take over the world, but not by globalism. The United Nations is out to take over the world by regionalization. They're setting up these 10 seats of power, just like the Bible said, and they're setting the stage for the Antichrist to step in and control these regions. Look at the next one. Globalization, regionalization, and socioeconomic inequality. This is an interesting one. This is a course. This is a textbook that was offered by the United Nations University. Again, this is a screenshot off of their website. Look at United Nations University. Oh, look, there's admissions if you want to join. There's articles, there's projects, there's publications, events, everything you want. Just go to the United Nations University website and you can see the same thing. Their textbooks on regionalization and steps toward global governance. Well, this is a course that they're offering. Globalization, regionalization, and socioeconomic inequality. Look at, there's the start date of the course. This is an old screenshot that I had. Here's the expected end date. I mean, there's the courses right there. This is interesting. This is also a course, Monitoring Regional Integration. And this course is all about how do we integrate these regions together. Basically, it's about how do we get these regions to work well with each other. Trade, economy, currency, all of those things. How do we get everything to work together? It's interesting.